And we're back to another episode of Let's Play Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. I'm your host, the RPG guy. It is time to get back to killing. It's a shame one cannot eat goblin meat. There'd be so much of it to go around. It's actually kind of literal too when you think about it. Eeny, meeny. Yeah, just do that. Why eeny meeny it when the meeny doesn't mean anything? And he's down for the count. Yeah, you notice I'm not bringing Hadhod in. I'm thinking we should try to get everybody else caught up a little bit, because he's kind of far ahead. He's pulled ahead of the whole pack. So it really wouldn't hurt if the other characters had a chance to catch up in some way, shape, or form. We could put him in the lead so he doesn't get too far ahead, but we need to get a better grip on what's going on here. Is it me or does Elagos kind of look like, what's his name from Stranger Things? David Harbour? Like his little emote looks like David Harbour. I could be wrong, but about the name of the actor, but the guy who kind of mouthed off when he got his Emmy over politics and weird shit, and it kind of got weird. It's, hey, technically you can say whatever you want up there, but I personally, as a common sense thinking human being, don't really give a rat's ass what an actor has to say about politics. Just gonna say that. They're the last people I would listen to. And somebody asked me why, and I said because they're one percenters. Why, if you're against rich people, why would you listen to rich people? Who, not to say that David Harbour might be out of touch, but most of the people in Hollywood are. I worked for these people, which I work for them again now. But as a person who works for these people are incredibly out of touch with reality, like the real world problems and real people issues. And bless their heart, I'm not a religious person, I'm just using that as a term, but, for caring about things. But, like I said, they're mostly their heads up their own ass in this grand scheme of things. They don't really research or do any really looking into what they're preaching and what they're, backing. And there was a famous actor. There's been a couple of them actually who have pointed this out. It's like if you listen to anything an actor says about politics, religion, or anything else, you have to remember they're actors. And the funny thing is, a lot of them, some of them didn't even graduate high school until like years later. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but just an interesting point of perception. It's like you don't have to be a very intelligent person to be an actor. You have to be a very talented and skillful person. Skillful, I mean, in fairness, acting is a meritocracy. It's all about how good you are at the art form, right? It has nothing to do with how smart you are. And like I said, they don't do much research into anything. There's a few that do, and then the other thing you have to consider is the few that do really only know the one subject that they know. But they try to bleed it into other subjects, and it doesn't work. Jon Stewart with the 9/11 survivors, the 9/11 first responders, rather, is what they are. And his work that he's done for them is probably some of the most wonderful work anybody in entertainment has done in recent history for human beings. I stand by that sentiment. And you can mention a whole bunch of others. Just look up Jon Stewart fighting Congress people and commission people to ensure that the people who were trying to save lives at 9/11, who ended up you know, getting lifelong damage and cancer and all kinds of like horrible things that came out of the building rubble and debris because they sifted through it to save people and to do their job and protect, protect the people of New York. And then for the government and even New York to pretty much abandon them when they needed money, and for someone like Jon Stewart to step up to those political bullies is a big deal. And how he did it was the right way to do it. And John, you get my thumbs up for that. Any other subject, though, I hear you he's kind of, now that he's become successful with that, and again, one of the most epic rants on government policy and bullshit I've ever heard. It's really good. Check it out. It's on YouTube. It was on C-SPAN or something, and then it was like the comedian heard round world for tearing into people. You ever hear like those epic monologues of like Robin Williams in a movie? He literally had one of those epic monologues that you only hear about in cinema. And just the way it just tore apart those congressmen was so delicious. It was great. It was great. If you were into speech and debate, that would have given you a 6-foot erection with a cheeseburger on the end of it. You would have been so happy to watch how that went down. And again, that's the big thing is there's again, he was very researched in that subject to the point where he made that. And then he started getting into other politics that he wasn't as researched in, which he later admitted to. And then, yeah, it kind of, he stopped talking about some of that stuff when he realized there's a lot more. And I'm not going to get more political than just that little bit of commentary, because it's all that needs to be said. But there is, again, don't take your political advice from actors. Okay, I live in a state that had one for a governor. We had Arnold. And to be fair, Arnold didn't screw anything up. Okay, contrary to some people saying that he did. But when you ask for what did he screw up policy-wise, they never can tell you. He fixed a lot of... We had a governor in California called Gray Davis. And Gray Davis, may you burn in the 3 fires of hell, or at least get probed by something that's hilariously painful. But what Gray Davis did, the state of California suffers from a couple of things, other than wildfires. Wildfires is just what everybody knows of, but it's not technically the biggest problem that California suffers from. The biggest problem is drought. And we had drought, and we had an energy crisis, because before Gray Davis took office, we didn't have a drought. We didn't have an energy crisis. Our taxes were actually high. They're the highest in the country, but right now. But our taxes have been always high, and one of the things that made them high is because we were trying to fix the drought. And of course, there's all these problems with California that I've always believed, like golf courses in the middle of deserts and people watering their lawn 3 times a day. I have a neighbor that literally does that. He mows his lawn like 3 times a week to get it as smooth as a golf course, and the dude waters it like 2 to 3 times a day for like 3 minutes to 5 minutes. And then when the city came around, I was like, we can't stop you from using all your water, but we don't like that you're using it, kind of commentary. He just, instead of doing the 3 minutes like 3 times a day, he did 15 minutes once a day. So when you do the math, it's actually longer. And I think he did it just to spite them. And the dude's kind of, he's a nice guy, but when it comes to his lawn, he's kind of a douche. But yeah, the whole theory is we pay for it. Now, my brother lives in the heartland of California, if you want to call it that. He lives out where we grow all the food and stuff like that. Yeah, didn't we turn subtitles on? I'll have to look into that. Look into that and see what the hell happened. But my brother lives out in the farmland, and they're told that they're not allowed to water their lawns more than like once a week for like 10 minutes. And the temperatures out there are like 107 degrees on most days, and like 30 to 40, at 40 at night. So, and very dry. It's very dry out there. All of a sudden, it's kind of was random for them to start having these weird kind of sudden droughts, dry weather all of a sudden. But anyway, out where he lives, they're only allowed to water once like a week. But everybody in LA County pretty much can water whenever the hell they want. And that to me is unethical. Unethical. To limit the farming community how much water they can do their lawns. Now, to be fair, the farming community, this was one thing I did correct my brother on, and he's like, all right, that makes sense. Their lawns are like 4 times the size of ours. My brother's house has this giant, freaking huge front yard, and a really good sized backyard. So there is a little to be said about that element of it. But at the end of the day, it's still like, yeah, but they have a fraction of the people who live out there than live where we are. So, where I am. So, again, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other. It's all a load of shit, and people should just conserve water. But what we were doing, getting back to Gray Davis and Schwarzenegger, I know we're getting into politics, ever so slightly. So Gray Davis caused a water crisis because we used to get our water from Colorado, or one of the nearby states. It was either Utah or Colorado. I believe it was Colorado. They used to send us water. Yay for water. We used to buy it. It's one of the reasons why we had a higher tax rate than many other states at the time. What ended up happening down the road was, in the infinite wisdom of Governor Gray Davis, he felt that we did not deserve that water and canceled the deal with Colorado for their mountain water that they were getting from the thawed ice of the mountains or something like that. That's what I had heard. I don't know exactly where it was coming from. That was just a dude I knew that lived in Colorado. And again, you take that with a grain of salt, but we knew we were getting it from there. From another state. Specifically, again, I'm going to keep rephrasing it. I believe it was Colorado. So anyway, lo and behold, problems arise when he canceled the water thing, because, then the drought, we started going into a drought. And, he was like, well, we got to conserve water. But the counties had already made deals with literally the cities saying prior that we didn't need to conserve water, and you're not obligated to conserve water. And Gray Davis did nothing about that. So that led to a water crisis, which then led to, of course, an energy crisis. And I believe we ran into rolling blackouts for, I think, ever since he went into office, because he refused to fix it, because it would mean you have to reinstate the water deal. He'd have to, kind of go back to the way us getting water, and I believe there was some bill that he passed to reduce and go to renewable energy, and this was back in the 90s, and renewable energy, as good as it is today, it's still not good enough. My father's an electrical engineer, and he does take pride on what he knows about it, and one of the things that he has pointed out is that we do not have the battery capacity to properly run renewable energy to power cities in the way people think we can. In other words, pretty much the concept of what he says is, if you look at the schematics for like the big solar array out in the desert that feeds into San Francisco, it's barely enough to keep the city going, and the power demand is creeping up more than the solar system can carry. The thing is that it fills the battery up to the point where there's not really much you can do about it in that regard, right? So it's filled up to the point where there's no problem with the getting of the light, the solar energy, because here it is. When I say it's a solar array, it's not solar panels like you would put on your roof. They're mirrors that shoot up to a tower that boils water and runs a generator, pretty much. And that's what it is. So it's not solar like using solar panels. It's one of those types of solar arrays, which are very useful, and it plumbs in water from the ocean to do that. Cool system, but there's not enough storage for the energy, so it depletes like 80% of the energy every day, or it's like 70% every day. And when there's an overcast, which in the desert doesn't happen often, but it does happen, when there's an overcast, oh boy, does it become a shit show. And it's a shit show because then you start seeing the rolling blackouts, and then you hear in national news, California is experiencing rolling blackouts. And, again, every electric engineer I've ever met, through my dad's friends and through people I knew, some of my students who went off to college and graduated as electrical engineers, have all pointed the same problem as a consistent issue. It's like we don't have the battery technology. We have the gathering technology relatively okay, but we don't have the battery technology to make it work. And so for all of the niceties of the world, we just don't have it. Now, I know there's something big in battery technology coming, but it's still another 15 to 20 years out. So renewable energy, you gotta do better. And it's mostly because people think about the gathering, they don't think about the storage. Like, where are you gonna put all that? Where are you gonna put all that, bro? Where are you gonna put all that energy? It's like, oh well, no, it'll just keep it going. Well, it won't. That only works if the sun's out 24 hours a day, which it is not. So, lo and behold, now there's a cool technology that I noticed Samsung is using, which are items that are powered by the light bulbs of your home. So, like, I've got this new TV, this QLED, right? And the remote, you can either charge it with a USB-C cable, or you can charge it with this little solar panel on the back of it. But it's not solar, it's your own room light. I think solar works for it too, but I don't want to quote that because I didn't read anywhere that it said that. But yeah, I keep this thing pretty much at 100% all the time, almost all the time. Just from turning the remote upside down so the light can charge it. Neat little piece of technology. Where has that been? And again, the answer usually on high from the engineer people that, I've been to parties that my dad used to go to for engineering, always said it was, we didn't have the battery to do it. But I'm like, well, what about this? But anyway, yeah, let's get this thing going where you can charge it via a cable, or you can lay it on its front and charge it with a regular ceiling fan light. Let's improve that technology. Sounds like that's more on the right path than most of the others do. Anyway, I'm digressing. But this is going to happen in this Let's Play because story-wise, we know what's going on. It's the same story that's been from the beginning. It's become Final Fantasy XIII in the essence of it's a gauntlet of fights. The question is what keeps it interesting, and it's the gameplay, specifically, that keeps it interesting enough that we can do that. But I am going to have to talk about something like the weather. But there's some California political history here. It's not 100% perfect or properly fully explained. There's a lot of caveats and things I didn't mention, but if you want to know how Schwarzenegger got elected, he wasn't elected at a regular election. He was elected to replace the shame wagon that was Gray Davis, and he was a Republican. It just goes to show you, it's don't vote the party, vote the policy. Party means very little. Vote the policy. I'm a nonpartisan. Look, I've never been a member of the Republican or Democratic Party because, in the words of Lewis Black before he kind of went nuts, Republicans suck and Democrats blow, and the only time they switch sides in that regard is depending on who's in office. One's a party of no ideas and the other party is a party of bad ideas, and that all depends on who's in office. So, just saying, Democrats aren't the answer, neither are the Republicans per se. The catch is finding the right candidate. Even though they may exist in those parties, finding the right candidate is key. We haven't had in my opinion, a good, competent president. Very debatably Reagan, but I'm more willing to push back to JFK. And then if you really press me on like pristine perfection, it would be Dwight D. Eisenhower. We haven't had a great president since Dwight D. Eisenhower. So, I like Ike. What can I say? And I'm talking like a president who is much more honest and good, that cares the most for the people. And I want to say he might be the last he might be the last president we've had that held a significant military position, not just some weird little tiny thing of service. I'm talking like, Eisenhower was the supreme commander. What else can I say? Anywho, enough of that. But you get my point. Politics be damned. People like to talk about politics all the time, and to be fair, most people are talking out of their ass. myself included. I should never deny that my ass don't sometimes, my shit don't stink. Or rather my shit does stink and it needs to be sometimes addressed. But there is a moment where, like, I know a lot of people, even before things were hyper political like they are today, before that time, people always thought of Californians as kind of like, whoa man, like, we're not really into the whole politics thing, bro. And us being tree huggers and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, those people exist, but the majority of this state is not that way. It's just the big cities, and even within the big cities, there's giant communities, not big enough to flip the state, but we have voted in Republicans before. I mean, Reagan, look at Reagan. He came from California. People forget that. I know a lot of people from the South forget that when they go on their drunken binges on how much they like Reagan. And again, he wasn't terrible, so I can't, he wasn't the worst president in history. I wouldn't say it was the best either, but, And if you ask me about our most recent presidencies of the 2000s, not impressed with any of them. My famous quote is, "We survived them." Ooh, nice. Give me them elven love lips. So that's really all I have to say. And what's funny is, look at the stairs are still there. So what was the point of that scene? Or was it these stairs that aren't there anymore? Now I don't know, because I just didn't really care that much in the scene to care, because we already had a scene like that in The Lord of the Rings. Alright, since Elagos leveled, we can probably put him back in. What is the... I know, like, half of all of you guys who are watching this right now are, like, zoned out, or, like, jumping forward just so you don't have to hear this nonsense coming out of me, but, if you don't have to, now you don't have to worry about a Q&A, just people who want to know, just send them to this episode of my politics. If you want to know my politics to a degree too, just watch George Carlin. When he was younger, not when he was older. When he got really old, he started losing it a little bit, which is a shame because the guy was brilliant. He was a brilliant man. He predicted the future of political correctness and all that stuff. He was right on with, like, that arriving and destroying society. And he was back in the 60s, he would have been considered a far lefty. Not a socialist, though. He's very anti-socialist, but he's probably closer to a libertarian by today's standards. Back then, he was a Democrat, and he was a brilliant man. He's got a really good book out you can read called Brain Droppings. I highly recommend you read it. It's hard, even just buy a used copy of it on Amazon or something. It's a wonderful book. There's an audio book of it for free on YouTube of him reading his own book. It's not comedy. There's some funny stuff in it, but it's not comedy. It's a very seriously created storybook. It's a very storybook. I don't mean storybook. It's a well-written book about, political correctness, about kind of certain social issues that are starting to rear their ugly heads. He even does a commentary about it. Probably his last good stand-up that confronted that was when he talked about when he talks about how we're changing the terminology to be quote-unquote less offensive, and how it's actually probably more offensive. And then he talks about it in his book in much more detail of the complications of doing all of that. And it's quite fascinating. It's really good reading. It'll help you win almost any debate with people that are like that you could imagine. I know that sounds weird, but I've used a lot of his arguments and just literally tore people apart. And it's not hard. It's not rocket science. I mean, the guy was a comedian. He wasn't a rocket scientist. But comedians are social commentary people, And that's the thing, is you want to, if you can't trust a sociologist, you should trust people who do and study social commentary in order to make a living, which is what comedians do. It's kind of their job. Because if they study it, and then they make fun of it, and if people laugh, it means they probably got it right. Just saying. chances are they probably got it right. Alright, what do we got here? I'm sorry, guys. I know. He's still going on about it. Shut up! Alright, let's see here. Bastard's healing. They're getting smarter and stinkier. Fear the stink. Barathor didn't fear shit, he just fucking wrecked that dude. Somebody learned a skill at some point, and I'm worried. I think it was Hadhod who learned an axe skill, and I'm worried that he's gonna start learning bad stuff. Stuff I don't want him to learn. Fire protection. I don't think anybody needs that right now, so we're not gonna bother with that. Let me double check. Draining shot. It's him. No. We had him doing draining shot. The more I look at it, though. Lowers melee defense of an enemy. It's 45. Draining shot really isn't that useful. I don't think so, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Kingsfoil Grace is 10 away. Okay. Crippling Smash. Yeah, he is on something else. Don't care about that. We're going to go to... Allows Hadhod to strike twice, or a 2-strike combination attack that also stuns the target. You know, as much as I want to go with Durin's Wrath, let's grab Mountain Rage. It will be faster to learn, and we'll pick up Durin's Wrath later. We're going to skip counterattack altogether. So we're not going to put the fire protection on anybody, because why? Oh god, down there, yeah. There's an area of the game I didn't forget. It's like a goblin shrine of shame. It's a little annoying. I hate it. It's one of the areas that one of my friends who played this game, I believe it was Gene, or Griffin Man, for those of you who wonder who Gene is, from the Chairman of the Board show. I think he said he struggled pretty badly through this game and he gave up on it because it just visually didn't appeal to him. And the story, for what it was trying to tell, wasn't that appealing either. Fair enough.
Leave this place, creature of shadow.
He's standing on top of a little statue. No one takes me from my statue.
The creature draws power from that altar. He will be difficult to deal with.
Draws power from the altar. Looks like his altar is more on fire than anything else, but it's a stronger, upgraded version of the casters. So we gotta be careful. And again, he's accompanied by 2 pricks with blades here, so we need to prevent stunning. And I'm debating in my head, do we go with it? We'll keep Elagos in. Let's take out the veterans first, because just the bulk damage that all 3 of them are going to do is going to be a lot. We have Barathor to deal with the magic damage after he places up Standfast, and we'll do company whatever protection to get that AoE magic defense. Let's bring in Hadhod here. Hadhod's going to go to town with some delicious Goblin's Bane. Some Goblin's Bane! Nice. Inferno of Wutun! and went from a Del Taco fart to a Taco Bell fart. I see what he did there. Now, Hadhot is not immune to stun, because we didn't do it. So keep that in mind. But we're going to be gunning for the little sword dude soon, so it's not going to matter either way. I'm sorry I went on that rant, guys. Sometimes things got to be said, you know? People on the channel sometimes ask me about, they bring up politics and stuff, and I'm not big on talking about them in chat, and people ramble about them and get all pissed off and, you know, have all these issues. But at the end of the day, I'm just one of those people that's like, I don't know what to tell you, but beware of stupid people in large groups. If anybody comes up to you with an idea, you know, always be critical of the idea. Don't just believe in it right away. Check your own sources. Don't just trust what people tell you. Because a dangerous thing is a dangerous entity is a mob. A mob of people who feign educated and have no idea what the hell they're actually talking about. That's a scary premonition. That's not premonition. That's a scary position to find yourself in. It's following people that could be wrong about issues that are inside the head and the philosophy of what people do. You know, look up the differences between fascism and communism, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's not much difference. There's almost none. Policy-wise, it's who the policies target that make them different. You could argue somewhat about the execution too, of how they're done. And the execution is not just me saying the execution of how they do it. It's also a pun. A dark, dark pun. But yeah. And I'm not going to get into it. I've read all the books in college. Okay, I went and did my due diligence and took classes that specialized in teaching about the history of World War II. And specifically the politics, and there's a whole class on politics between the 1910s, no, it was 1900 through 1960. And it was a whole thing on the politics of Europe. Okay, I sat and did my footwork. Most people have not. We had to read, you know, Marx and Karl Marx and all, you know, all that stuff. And I guarantee you, it's not what you think. If you and then we did even cooler stuff where we read the letters of Karl Marx, which were a wonderful read, where he pretty much denounces everything he wrote. After he saw his family pretty much destroy the kind of the sanctity of what he wrote, like the philosophy and the ideas that were wonderful and you know, a utopian world would work, which we don't live in a utopian world, so they don't work, and that's kind of what the conclusion he came to ended up becoming. But he did his best, you know, to try to find a way to help the lowest class of people move up in the world, and that's an admirable thing. When he saw how it was executed and how it happened, and how his own family, who was the lead of the parties that he pretty much started the first major communist party, and he watched how it kind of unfolded, and he pretty much predicted, you know, all the parties that came after it for communism. So there you go. He predicted how poorly they would be run, and those were all in his letters before he died. It's good stuff. So interesting stuff. I think you can buy one of the 3 books that is a compilation of, I think, like a handful of his letters. It's not all of them. So and then the other 2 books that have the other letters are out of print, which is kind of strange. You'd be like, why would they go out of print? They just didn't reprint them. Probably because there was some birdie out there who's like, well, you know, he was old, and it's like, no, he was actually, everybody who wrote about him pointed out he was rather lucid. not lucid. Lucid? He was rather competent before his death. Kind of like William. What's his name? No, not William Grant. Oh God, what's his name? Very, very hyper intelligent guy. Thomas Sowell. Very brilliant economist. Dude, he's 90 years old and he's still, for lack of a better term, he's still sharp as a tack. He's still kind of there, mostly there. I could sit there and literally pick apart your economic, debate. Brilliant guy. Just because you're old doesn't mean you're not incapable of comprehension of any kind. And you should listen to your elders. You should listen to the old, unless they're politicians. Which luckily I don't think he ever was. He worked in government for a brief time, but I don't think he was like a big thing. And here's the funny thing about him: he's a very big anti-socialist, and his reason for that is because he was a socialist a long time ago, and then the best comment he ever made on it, which was wonderful, it got a chuckle out of me, and I wasn't expecting it. Was somebody asked, well, why did you stop being a communist? And he goes, well, there's this annoying little thing called facts. And every time he got an argument or discussion about politics with his socialist friends, he pretty much would look up the information about what they were complaining about and find out that what they're complaining about is nonsense. So it's kind of funny. It is funny in a way. Not gonna lie. And again, it somewhat applies to today. Even today, he's dismantling a lot of them too. It's kind of, again, it's got a air of hilarity to it. I can't quite describe it beyond that. It's just, when you see this guy who's in his 80s just destroying people's arguments because they're just like, he's literally telling you when it happened, where it happened, how it happened, where you can look up that it happened, and the people who are trying to argue with him is just like, they're just done. They have no argument. There's like, we didn't have access to that information. It's like, he's like, sure, of course you did. You got a library card? You had access to that information. You just chose not to look it up. Or they try to slander him and do other stuff, and that's horrible too. That's horrible. Let's slander somebody because they either outwitted you or they're telling the truth. That's the thing. Slander only comes in when the truth cannot supply you with victory. And I stand by that. And that's why the last couple elections I've just been zoned out. I voted. I'm not telling you who I voted for, but I voted. But I was just completely uninterested in the results. Because I knew it was going to be a shit show no matter what. So, yeah. And it was a shit show, that's for sure. And I have no opinion right now. All we can do is see what happens in the years to come. And then make a consensus at that time. Right now it's a little too early to make a consensus about anything. Flames of Udun! Get some! Oh shit. That's not gonna fly. Okay, Barathor needs a turn so he can do Company Valor. Then everything should start connecting a little bit better here. Oh no, but he's not dead. I should have known that wouldn't have been enough. But he shouldn't be able to stun us. Yeah, that's good. We won't bring in Elagos until we at least get rid of one or two of these dudes, but we need to start healing. And I'm almost ready to start gunning for the caster at this point, because he's dragging this fight out a lot longer than it needs to be. And the other issue is Hadhod's not hitting with his attacks. Like that, which vexes me to the nth degree here. Why that stuff's not connecting. Like I said, we might have to go for this caster. Deal with the swordsman later. You know, Hadhod's almost out of AP, though we can... Okay, we can technically fix that. You know, we can put up company might, too, at this point as well. Really break him down. If he hits that, he'll kill it. There we go. Attaboy. We've got enough for one more. We don't have enough to do company... whatever, Valor, or what, not company Valor. The one that allows for... recovering AP, so we really just gotta fight through this, get through this fight. It might be in our best interest to bring in Elagos for at least one round. We'll probably take Idriel out on her turn, bring in Elagos. That way we have 3 attackers. For sure attackers. Nice. Well, Hadhod recovered some AP there. Okay. Did I use Fellowship Grace and not realize I did that? Whatever. Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I must have used it. And there we go. Made it through. Somehow we made it through. No level for anybody else, so we didn't get much for that fight either. No chest in here, but it is a scripted fight, so it's good that we did it.
Their war drums must be silenced!
We must attack them at range!
And quickly! The longer we wait, the more goblins it shall be called!
Yeah, to be fair, how are we doing on AP? We're not doing much on AP. Is there a way for us to... We're going to hit up that save point because it is safer. Quite literally, safer. I feel like I'm missing something in this room, though. So we can see a dot. Can't act on it. Let's get out of this room, though, and go to the surface. We're going to probably get into a fight. No, we get out of it. Let's move up here, because we know there's a save point back this way. And let's make a big save. So pretty much we went in there and cleared that out, ran back up to save. get us that delicious AP back. Let's take a look at our stats really quick. I might want to resave. Yeah, we'll just put in our stats now. We'll raise his spirit. Again, he needs as much AP as he can get it. Though he's at a point where he's holding pretty strong with it, but once he learns that other spell he's been working on, it's not going to hold up anymore. Yeah, that's gone. Well, it's about a quarter of the way there. We still got a long way for that to go. But we are going to get to a boss fight where we can exploit him learning it and not leaving in that fight until we learn it, pretty much, which I might do. Again, something little makes this really cool boss fight kind of fall flat on its face, but it is what it is. And Aura of the Valor is 4 away, so we really need to finish that off big time, and then get Power of the Valor started. Then skipping Valinor Endurance entirely, because but Power of the Valor and Valorous Haste to Cleansing Water will be the next step. Leech Inspiration is getting there, but not quite there yet. We looked at these skills. He's getting there when he gets there. Ixthelian Wrath is almost done, which is great. Defensive Strike is somewhat useful, so we might look into that. We don't need Targeted Strike so much, because we can just lower an enemy's armor. Though, to be fair, it is a pretty good skill, but we'll just learn the rest of these in order, pretty much. Draining Shot, again, he's just slowly, we're barely touching on it. We're going to get to a lot of Creature's Bane stuff coming up, but getting Kingsfoil Grace learned is a big one. Because once he learns that, we can literally pick up these other two, which are pretty decent too. And then we can kind of start picking up some of his other skills here in due course, of course. Aura of the Valor will be good. We're working on some of those others. So you noticed what I've been trying to do is have every character have abilities available to them that are exclusive, that give them the means to use abilities on themselves. You know what I mean? That's really what I've been gunning for, especially with Elagust. The other characters pretty much have always had skills that they can just spam on themselves. But Elagust doesn't get one of those until you learn Kingsfoil Grace. And there is a very big reason why I'm doing that. Again, you will get to see in due course. You will get to see why. And it will make a whole lot of sense. And again, I'm making it sound like this really cool boss fight is just going to be me grinding skills. Pretty much, yeah. But it is a finite battle. You can't just... I don't think you can infinitesimally just keep it going. We're going to go as long as we can to exploit the hell out of it. But don't rely on it. Don't think I'm gonna take it to the nth. I'll take it as far as I have patience for. But anyway, we're not close to that boss fight yet, so we don't have to worry about it. But I do want to thank you guys for stopping by. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/JackStarStudios for more live gaming action. And when we come back, we gotta go deal with the little drummer goblin. Yeah, we're gonna have to. That was more of a Cartman goblin than anything. We're going to have to go and kick his butt, and I'm sure it's going to be a process to do that. So again, thanks for stopping by, guys, and we'll see you guys next time.